السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه وبعد. Dearest listeners, inshallah we will be looking at the duties of the children towards their parents. We should understand every single one of us are children of someone. We were all born to parents and we have duties towards our parents the same way that our parents have duties to us. As children, not only when we are young should we be obeying our parents and being good to our parents and ensuring that we do not harm our parents in any way, but even when we grow older, even when we are married, even after our parents have passed away, we should ensure that we fulfill what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires from us. The first most important duty that a child must fulfill towards his or her parents is that they should please their parents. A child should please his parents in what is permissible. The obedience of a parent and the parents is actually a duty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Indeed, your Rabb has declared that you shall worship none besides Him and you shall be good to your parents. Now this includes being obedient to them and not hurting their feelings. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has said, the happiness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lies in the happiness of the father. And in one narration, the pleasing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lies in the pleasing of parents. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen the parents of each person and made them a means of bringing him or her into existence. Parents, especially mothers, go through so much sacrifice and difficulty for the child. This sacrifice can never be overlooked, and this is why we need to make sure that we please our parents. Obedience to parents results in the blessings and happiness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we in turn will be granted good offspring. So if you are good to your parents, Allah inshallah will grant you good offspring who will be good to you as well inshallah. And our offspring then will please us as well, and they will be obedient to us as well. Remember, it is a sacrifice to be obedient to your parents. Even if one happens to have parents who are non-Muslims, he or she should be good to them and should please them and obey them in all that does not contradict the Sharia. And regarding the female child, after marriage, obedience to her husband comes before that of her parents. So one might say, is it that the Sharia has differentiated between a male child and a female child? The answer is yes. The Sharia has differentiated between the male child and the female child. After marriage, when it comes to a male child, the order is the parents come first and then the others. And when it comes to the wife, firstly it is the husband and then the parents. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to understand this. Remember, within a marriage, we should not actually, make it a big issue that, my parents this and my husband this. We should try and live in a harmonious home, and we should try as far as possible to understand one another. And we should try to work out a system that will result in the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the happiness of both of us at the same time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to understand. Now, remember one thing, to please parents, one of the most important things is when we speak to our parents, we should speak to them in a polite manner. Never use abusive language, because that is a major sin. It is one of the most serious sins, which is actually termed as a crime by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam when he spoke about associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he spoke about murder. Before he even spoke about murder, he spoke about being disobedient and being bad to your own parents. This he has termed as min akbaril kabair, from the most major of the major sins. And for this reason, many of us take it for granted, whether our parents are old and we are old as well, or whether we are young and we are addressing our parents the same rule applies at all times. We should understand that it is a requirement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we speak very, very respectfully, with a respectable tone, with words that are chosen, carefully chosen words, so that we don't hurt their feelings. Even if we disagree, for example, with the advice of our parents or with what they may have said, because we should understand they too are human beings. They can make a mistake or two, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing you to see how are you going to speak to them in return. Are you going to, swear them, abuse them in front of your own children sometimes, in the case of those who are married and have children? Or are you going to respect them? Are you going to come out of your way to make sure that they smile? To put a smile on the face of your own mother or your own father is actually a very great act of worship. May Allah grant us the understanding. So, the first and most important method of pleasing your parents is actually by speaking in a good tone with them, avoiding language that will hurt them, spending a little bit of time with them. As we always say, when we become old and we become, of age, we get married, we have our own children, we tend to sideline our parents sometimes without realizing that one day when it happens to us, it will be too late and we will have to cry. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from that. What we need to do is understand that our own parents need time every single day, every few days, depending on where you are staying, how far you are. You can either give them a phone call just to ask them, how are you doing today? How did you spend the day today? This is what they want. Or when it comes to our mothers, if we have time, go and sit with them for 5 or 10 minutes in the day and, ask them how the day was. Let them speak to you. Let them release whatever is in their heart. You don't have to take it too seriously sometimes if they blabber or go on, because sometimes when they become of age, they don't have anyone to talk to. Whom do you expect them to release all the tensions they have in their hearts and all the feelings they have in their heart? Whom do you want them to release all this to? Should they go onto the streets and release it to someone who is strange to the home, or should they actually speak to you? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability. Nowadays, unfortunately, the old age homes are full of Muslim parents. We wonder, how will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala treat us on the day of Qiyamah if we treat our own parents like that, and we kick them straight out of the house, throw them into the old age home just because they could not get on with my wife or my family members, my children, etc. We need to understand, yes, it might not be the duty of one's wife to look after her in-laws, but it is a virtuous deed. It is something through which you will earn respect. You will earn a status that the other daughters-in-law do not have. So it might not be your Shari'i duty, but definitely if you are going to engage in it as a practice that is a voluntary practice which will draw you firstly closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, going through the difficulties of putting up with your in-laws is actually a jihad. And it will result in your spiritual upliftment. You will be doing something over and above, your own duties. Remember, being good to the Muslim ummah, those who are not even related to you, is an Islamic requirement. So what about those who are related to your own husband? Some of us, unfortunately, meaning some women, unfortunately, walk into the home. The day they walk into the home, they say, listen, you either get rid of this old lady or I'm not going to come. We should understand the son has a duty towards his parents. And yes, if we have a problem, we should not put it so bluntly. And we should not hurt feelings, but we should understand, let us try firstly to put up with a situation so that we earn the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is, as I always mention, one is the right. You have a right to a separate quarters. You have a right that they don't interfere at all. And the other is a virtuous deed, something that you will earn respect with, and people will look up to you, and the du'as will come out for you from the hearts of these people. And inshallah, your children, soon they will have families which will really be very, very happy homes because of the du'as that you earned by looking after someone that you did not really have to look after. So this is something we should understand. Don't always look at what you deserve, and just the basics. A few days ago, I was actually mentioning to a person who was speaking about their rights in the marital home, and I said, look, if you are going to be very hard and fast about the rights, yes, you have the right to do that, but it is also, if we had to ponder for a moment, if the husband walked into the home and said, listen, I am providing you that corner as accommodation, I am putting a bed into there, and I will throw you one piece of bread with a little bit of, what have you, every single day, and I'll give you a pair of clothes every year. That is my duty, that is my strict responsibility, and that's it. I've provided you with food, clothing, and accommodation, and I'm not going to give you anything else. How would a woman like that? She would not like it, because she would say, no, I'm being oppressed. Well, the same applies when the women get up and begin to say, look, I only want to do this and this and that, and I'm not going to do this and this and that. She should ask herself, am I being reasonable in what I am actually asking? Am I, is this what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be happy with? And am I only sticking to farad, or do I want to also fulfill the sunnah and the nafil and go further and further up the spiritual ladder? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the understanding. Yes, there are cases where we do have in-laws who might be difficult and who might be causing a split within the home. In that particular case, husband and wife should actually discuss it and decide what can be done in order to combat the problem and to solve it. In brief, we are speaking about being good to parents, and the reason why the in-laws came into the picture here is because after marriage, still we should understand that our parents, we need to be good to them, we need to please them, we need to speak to them in a beautiful manner. And we need to realize that if we are good to them, inshallah, tomorrow when our daughters-in-law and sons-in-law come into the picture, and our grandchildren come into the picture, our children will get married, Allah will grant them all happiness because of a few difficulties that we might have gone through. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to understand. Imagine, even if a person's parents are non-Muslims, the Quran makes it very, very clear that we should be good to them and obey them, so long as they do not order us to do something that contradicts the Sharia. The minute they order us to do something that contradicts the Sharia, we should understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes first, and everything else comes after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.